What's going on, guys? I'm Weston Mac, and welcome back to One More Minute, the show where each day I get one more minute to talk about whatever I want. I have no idea what that was, but as you can hear my voice, it's like lower and like very sexy right now. And I really don't know what's going on. I took a nap. That's probably what it is. If you can see in my face, I took a nap and then woke up and like, oh no, I need to film one more minute real fast. So, welcome to One More Minute. And in today's video, we're gonna be talking more about school stuff. So if you didn't see yesterday's video, it's kind of a continuation, a little bit more of just like, a little bit like more about educational styles, a little bit. It's gonna get more in the nerdy weeds of school stuff. So if you're into that, you're gonna enjoy this video. So anyways, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is I've recently come across, well, obviously my classes recently, but I kind of have seen after so many years of doing school, I'm in like year like 47 of doing school, it feels like. And I've seen so many different variants and types of learning and also teaching and also laying out a class schedule and stuff like that. And I'm gonna have my hot takes and opinions about how this should work, this whole school thing should work a little bit, and what works best for me. Because if I'm being honest, no matter what, you're always at some point in your life, there's no way you're gonna go 10 for 10, but you're gonna come across both a really, really bad teacher or professor that not necessarily is a bad teacher professor, but teaches in a style that you can just not learn from. And then you will sometimes come across a teacher professor where it's even just a super hard subject, but they're just so good at their job, or they've laid out the class so well that it just makes it easy. So here is kind of my general premise in terms of like teaching and learning styles. So I think it goes from one spectrum to the other. There is very hands-off approach. You let the material speak for itself, and there's that in terms of like teacher. And then you have the very hands-on approach where you purposely push for students to answer questions, even calling them out directly and be like, how does this work and why does this not work? And obviously helping them and stuff like that. And those are kind of the poles of the teachers. And then there's like this, which is like, you know, that like diagram. This just shows how much I know about like this thing. But basically that diagram where it's like 4 little quadrants. And then you also have the teaching and learning styles of like an entire class, where you have an actual class that is highly complicated and leaves like little to interpret, and it's just straight up the facts. And then you have kind of at the very bottom of that is a maybe less complex or something like that type of class with man, filming this right before waking up is absolutely insane, because like I'm both waking up while also trying to film this video. But hear me out. But it's kind of like I'm trying to lay out the kind of opposites of everything. And so what I'm thinking is a perfect class kind of lies in between the complexity and non-complexity versus the helpful and non-helpful teachers, somewhere like in this sort of range. And some of those classes I'm going to give examples for, and some of those classes I'm going to give bad examples for. So for instance, let's take math for instance. I've had a multitude of different math teachers and professors that have both been really good and horribly bad. And so a really, really good example of this would be my stats professor in my sophomore or junior year of college. And the reason why I say that, even though it's stats, it's a math class, it's one of the hardest classes to take because of how poorly laid out the structure of the class actually is. And what I mean by that, when I was taking it, I know they were kind of reworking how the entire class worked, because it has a really, really high failure rate. which I don't think Sam Houston will ever admit, but based off of the people I've talked to, there is a concerning amount of people, including myself, that has retaken that course before, and it sucks. Now, I left the course because it was a different thing, but I've seen a very large amount of people either drop out or fail that course. And even my year that I did pass that course with an A, the first test, I had one of the higher grades with a 47, and the entire department had everybody go to the learning center in the library and re-evaluate their test so that they can then gain points on the test. And no, it was a complete disaster of a year for that course. But I think they would eventually kind of rework it and change some stuff about it. But when it came to that class, I think the reason why it was initially so bad was the disconnect from the outside materials, like the homework, doing little repetitions of equations and stuff like that. The disconnect of the homework compared to the actual work within either the test or the actual coursework was pretty wide. Like, it just didn't make sense. But the difference is the teacher. We had an amazing professor. He was pretty young and would actually leave Sam Houston that semester to go work at A&M. He got hired full-time, I believe. And it makes sense. He's super smart and really nice and probably did not deserve the payroll he's probably getting here. So totally cool on him. I appreciate it. But he's also just super chill. We would talk every once in a while. But going into that, what he would really push for, while he was kind of hands-on, he wouldn't punish the student body for not being able to answer a question or not wanting to answer a question, while also not actively discouraging questions by answering questions. To explain that further, for instance, if you were to ask, okay, class, what formula would you use for this question? And a good chunk of times, nobody would raise their hand. And sometimes he'd call somebody out that he would know that would probably have the answer. But he'd also go through and basically almost do like a group poll where he's like, here are the 3 different equations we can say that this is probably it. And you go one by one. Okay, why is this the best equation? And you have people actually talk and discuss why these were better equations. That was one of the best things, because at that point, you're not asking an individual, you're asking the class, while also still being able to bounce off each other. And by the end of the semester, it was very rare that a question wasn't answered probably by me. I raised my hand a lot, but a different person or stuff like that. Like, it was rare they had to do anything like that. And also on top of that, for me personally, I wanted the A very badly in that course because I had been burned before, and we're about to get into that. So what I did is I took a different path entirely. I took the route of how I approach video games and how I approach grinding and level experience for those video games. And by repeating a simple task over and over and over again. And so what I did is, when you take the stats course, you basically have this program or website that gives you a near unlimited amount of questions. What I would do is I would do roughly about 100 questions a day, meaning I would do 700 of those questions. Now, was this overkill? Absolutely. Did I get like a 95 in that class and I think the class high? Absolutely. That was the most insane thing for me. And I believe I ran out of questions. I'm 99% sure I started seeing repeat questions daily. And so I don't know if they were put in manually or they created a huge database. And I started seeing repeat questions with people. I would talk to people and they're like, I've never seen a repeat question on that. There's so many questions. I did roughly about 600 to 700 a week. Those last few weeks, I would slowly kind of ramp it up and do just a ton of them. And by the time I made it to the exam, I was absolutely just a beast at that. But in a complete opposite scenario, taking a similar course format where in my opinion, the homework just didn't do that much for the actual coursework, and you had to do a lot more heavy lifting as the teacher to be able to progress, was initially my Algebra 2 class, and also my pre-calc class was kind of like that, but I'm not going to go into that because it was COVID, and it was a whole thing. But Algebra 2, when it came to that course, it was definitely teacher reliant. You had to have a good teacher that was able to break down an explanation that maybe not the entire class knew. It was one of those things where sometimes, from what I've heard, sometimes teachers don't prioritize the friendliness as they're supposed to be teachers. They're supposed to be this authority figure in their eyes, and that they should be able to do their work and not be friendly, not be some buddy. And in my humble opinion, that is a bad. This is not a no. I can understand having obviously that boundary between a teacher and a student. Obviously, not being too super friendly or just being buddy. You have to still be that authority figure, but being only that authority figure is bad. Because you create a disconnect for the student that might not be connected to the work at hand. So now they don't like the work, and now they don't like you. What are they supposed to like? What are they supposed to be influenced? What sort of any passion are they supposed to apply to the course? And it came down to my Algebra 2 professor. Now, a small part of me, when I did pass my my calculus class, is I wanted to find his email and email him and say, suck it. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little rude, but sometimes he does deserve it. And there was multiple kind of not nice things he did over the course of the semester, but one of the main things when it came to just teaching is it almost felt more similar to elementary school, where they give you a set of problems and say, sit down and solve these by the end of today. And if you don't finish these, you got homework. And that was kind of the general premise. Now, you could kind of go up and ask, but also he was kind of mean sometimes. And I'm not like, oh, he was mean. He was just kind of just rude and just like very Grinch-like, I think is the best way to put it, where there was so little there was so much kind of just hate and anger for life that you kind of seeped through to the actual class. And the vibe of the class was always pretty bad, and just didn't feel right. And so whenever you would go up and ask a question or whatever, he'd be like, really? That's what we're doing? Or like, just like, yeah, this isn't like, why would you answer this? And I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm just gonna go sit back down at my desk and be silent and fail the next test. And Loki might do a full episode just about bad teachers and professors. And more particularly, probably just him. He probably deserves his entire own episode. But I think that was the major difference between having both courseworks. I mean, while there are different subjects and technically different higher levels, it felt similar in the way that the actual structure of the class was laid out. Other than like, I mean, in terms of stats, it was more of let's solve this together, and not like Algebra 2 where it's like, okay, here's your little thing for the day, solve this, and then we'll go over it. No, it really made a huge difference when it came to the teacher, even when the course load was different. And I couldn't do the whole, I'm gonna do these 50 billion questions, because even the homework wasn't very good. It was a very simplified version where you then come across the more complex version of the coursework in the test. So anyways, I apologize if this is a little more rambly and a little more like, what's going on? I genuinely meant to film this earlier, but then took a nap and woke up and I'm like, I gotta film one more minute. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do want to do a little more talking about like the apartment and looking around some of my decorations and stuff, probably next episode. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Oh, we still have like 20 seconds left, don't we? I think I did this last time. I hope I don't get randomly cut off. Also, the lighting looks probably a little better now. I need to make this less shadowy. Less shadows here and more less